Hello, my lovely listeners. Today I've got a real treat for you on the podcast. Some designers create beautiful things, and others create work that really carries a story. And today's guest is someone whose work does both. In this episode, I talk to the lovely Eva Sonaike, a London-based textile and interior designer whose work is instantly recognisable for its bold palettes, layered patterns, and joyful energy. But what makes Eva's work so compelling isn't just the colour, it's the narrative behind it. Born in Germany to Nigerian parents, Eva's work is brimming with colour, confidence, and a real sense of cultural pride. Her collections celebrate the richness of West African culture while translating it into her contemporary interiors in a way that feels so modern and elegant. In the conversation, Eva refers to her Yoruba culture. The Yoruba are one of the largest ethnic groups in West Africa, primarily from Nigeria, and with a culture that places a deep importance on colour, symbolism, and textiles in a way of telling story and expressing identity. It's a tradition where fabrics, patterns, and colour combinations carry so much meaning. And in many ways, you can see that influence in Eva's work. Confident colour, layered prints, and designs that feel alive with story and symbolism. Before founding her own design brand, Eva worked as a fashion journalist, but she found a gap in the market for homeware when she couldn't find anything that she wanted to display that reflected her heritage when decorating her own home. She then began with a small collection of cushions, which quickly grew into a brand stocked by some of the most prestigious retailers. In the conversation, we also talk about colour, about how heritage and identity shape the spaces we create, and about why our home should tell the story of who we are. We also explore something I think is incredibly important: how design can help us create spaces that feel grounding, meaningful, and deeply personal in a world that often feels anything but. Eva brings such warmth and honesty to this conversation, and I think you're going to feel incredibly inspired by the way she sees the role of home in our lives. I interviewed Eva in her colourful and creative London studio, so do go and take a peek over on my YouTube channel to see some of her incredible work and grab some inspiration on how to make your own home feel grounding, vibrant, and expressive. So join me now. This is my conversation with Eva Sonaike. Welcome to the podcast, Eva. I would love to start where I always start with all my guests, is please tell us a little bit more about you, about your background, about your childhood, and how you came into this world of design.
Perfect. First of all, thank you so much for having me, Tash. It's absolutely amazing. We've known each other and now sitting here together with you on your wonderful podcast. So I'm Eva Sonaike. I love interiors. I love interior design. It's really interesting that you come back to my childhood, because I think as a creative or a designer, we are often influenced by our surroundings as children, and I was majorly influenced. So my parents are from West Africa and Nigeria, but I grew up in Germany, in Freiburg, in a really small town in the south of Germany. And I think from an early age, I was surrounded by both really kind of strong Nigerian, West African, Yoruba culture, but also by German culture.
Yes.
My dad was an art historian, so art and design was very, very prominent in our life. My mom was a pediatrician, but I think she was a kind of, I always call it an undercover interior designer.
Right.
Because her interiors, our house, is absolutely stunning.
Wow.
So growing up in an environment like this, which with two very, very strong, almost opposing cultures, I think really fed my love for design, my understanding for design, and yes, my obsession with design and color and pattern, etc. Having said that, I then pursued a different career. I moved to London in the late 90s to study. I studied journalism. Actually, I was really keen on fashion journalism. I loved fashion as well.
Okay.
So I have a degree in journalism, and then I did my master's in fashion journalism.
Wow. Yeah.
So I was always very much influenced by fashion. But then in my writing career, I always wrote about fashion, about design, about art. So that was always part of the narrative.
Yes.
Working in fashion, and especially high fashion, I think I worked in fashion for about 6 years. Yeah. I came at some point to the conclusion, understanding that I wasn't creatively fulfilled. And I had this dream of working in interiors, but I didn't really know how and why and how I could kind of transfer. And it started really simple. I had my first child. I was living with my husband. I still live with him, but we're living in his flat back then, and I didn't like his flat, so I just redecorated the flat.
Right.
I was looking for cushions for our house. I couldn't find anything that I liked.
Okay.
I want something that reflected my cultural heritage, my West African heritage.
Yes.
It's also my husband's heritage.
Okay.
And at the same time, something which is really high quality, well designed, linear, so that you can translate that into like a modern African inspired.
Yes.
But I don't like the word luxury interiors and nothing on the market. So I did research. I was a journalist. I'm very good at researching. So I researched internationally. There was no brand that catered for that market. So I took things into my own hand and started the brand, not knowing what I would let myself into. And it grew from there. First season, we were in Liberty, Selfridges and Phoenix on Bond Street. So it was clear there's a gap in the market. And now, almost 18 years later, I mean, I worked in fashion for some years after, but almost 18 years later, we're where we are. I think one of the leading African-inspired textile and interior brands.
You are. That's amazing. What an amazing story as well. And it's so great to hear about, you know, your movement through that, and also your really, really interesting combination of the heritage that comes into your work.
Thank you.
And so your work seems to be so deeply rooted in personal and cultural narrative as well. And I just want to ask, how much of your own story do you feel shows up in the patterns you create? And also, how did your background in journalism perhaps influence how you bring the stories through into those patterns and into your work? And just, yes, how have your Nigerian and your German heritage influenced the way you think about colour, pattern and space?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I feel, first of all, I am a journalist. I'm telling stories. I mean, and I feel like people say it's such a big move from journalism, from writing to what you're doing now. It is not really. I'm still telling stories. I think I still tell stories, not through words, but through my design. So I think on the storytelling base, it's relatively similar. I can tell stories, and that's what I do with the designs. They're very, very a representation of myself. People say you should never design for yourself, but I do design for myself. I do very much design for myself. If I don't like it, if I don't like it, it will not go out. And I think every piece that I design should be able to live in my home. But I also feel that every designer, every creator tells stories through their experience, through their cultural background. People see my work sometimes and say like, oh, I can see that. Or maybe they're more so like, oh, it's African, but it's different. I don't know what it is. I think that's me, and that's reflected in my work. So I think that's something really. When it comes to color and pattern and space, I'm Yoruba, West African, and people often say, how do you work with color? We know how to work with color. I don't even often think about there's a color wheel. You interior design, not a color wheel. I hardly use the color wheel. I have it there. Yes, you know, you can use it, but I don't really use it. I know which patterns work together. If you were to come to my wedding, we had a Nigerian wedding in Germany. It was like we had about 200 guests from Nigeria, and often they're color codes in Nigeria. You can wear this color, this color. I said, like, you know what? I want people to wear whichever color they want. The color combinations, what we do in specifically Yoruba culture, it's within us. So I feel very naturally combining colors as well as patterns. I mean, obviously there are certain rules for patterns, you know, which what works, what doesn't work together. But even designing patterns, I think I am just. For me, the designing aspect in my business is gives me the most freedom, because I can do what I want and what I like and tell my story through my designs. Everything is hand sketched, everything is hand drawn by me. So every little detail you see in here is hand drawn. So that's, I think, maybe just my talent or what I'm born to do. And then space. I think that's a really interesting question, because space is really important. I think that's where my German upbringing, living in Germany, being taught by my dad, who, was an art historian, where we traveled so much. We looked at spaces, we looked at museums, we saw especially cathedrals, medieval cathedrals. I mean, I've done everything under the sun you can imagine in Europe, so I think that was trained through that, my understanding of space. And I think you need to, when you design textiles, need to understand how do they sit in the spaces that I'm designing.
Definitely.
So it's all self. I also did like a course at KLC, so obviously that helped as well.
Right.
But in everything is a mixture of learning, understanding, storytelling, researching as a journalist.
There's so many elements that have to come together in interior design and design as a whole, isn't there? That I don't think many people realise how much goes into it.
Yes.
Okay, so that brings us really nicely onto the next point, which is creating a sense of belonging. And it's something I've been exploring in my own work more and more. It's about how our childhood experiences, what might have been childhood trauma, and what we bring into adulthood, and how we can make our homes to help us heal from that. And so I just wondered, kind of, what do you think we can do at home to add to that sense of belonging, especially now when the world is really feeling quite turbulent and overwhelming? What do you think we can do within our homes that most strongly contribute to creating that sense of belonging for us?
Yeah, I think sense of belonging is so important. I think right now more than ever, as you said, the world is quite turbulent is a mild word. And when you come into your home, you want to close that door and kind of distance yourself from this turbulence and come into a safe space, into a space where you reflect it. So for me, the home is more important than ever. My personal home is more important for me than ever because it creates a almost I don't know what's the word, and I won't say a haven, like a safe space, sanctuary where you can come home and where you can let go. And I think that's why sometimes I'm very critical to interior design, because people come to me or to other interior designers and like, I saw this in a magazine, I saw what you're doing, create that for myself.
Yes.
But I think it's really important that your story, your personality, your experiences are reflected in your home. Yes. So creating something which is really, really tailored to yourself is really, really important. So for me as an interior designer, if I put my interior designer hat on, I always sit with my clients, and again, I think maybe my journalism hat comes in as well, and really do it almost like an in-depth, get to know you into who are you, what makes you tick, what did you like as a child, what was good in your childhood, what was bad, what would you like to bring into your home, what would what do you not want to have surround yourself. And I think creating that, finding yourself and being really true to yourself, my own home is a perfect reflection of that. I think it represents me and my family. It's not just about myself, it's about me and my family to the core, who we are, what we like. For me, the German and Nigerian elements are represented there, the colors, the patterns that we like. So I think it's just, as a whole, you can obviously start in one room, you can start in one corner, you don't have to take the whole project on in one go, which may be to someone who's not a designer, may be quite daunting. But if you start in one small space, be it in your bedroom, be it in your bathroom, it could be anywhere, where you create something that represents you, that kind of reflects who you are, that makes you happy. I think it's really about happiness, not about creating a showroom. There's so many amazing top interior designs with boucle sofas and everything, where you come inside, the design looks amazing, or inspired by a hotel you went to, but is it really you? So for me, the best spaces I've seen are spaces where I come inside and I can exactly know that's the person, and I'm in this person's home, because I can feel that reflected in their design. And it can be through small memorabilia, small items, pictures, colors, patterns. I think that's the way forward. It's a really tricky question, because for me it's quite clear what that entails, but I think some people may feel overwhelmed and then often opt for grey or opt for a really, really simple solution and have a home that looks like everybody else's home.
Yeah, and you're so right. You can start small, can't you? You could start with something that's a little curio that you brought, or reminds you of something, or means something to you, or you picked up on your travels, or if you're from somewhere else, something you bring into your home. So we can start small and grow from there. I do think that having objects or patterns or whatever from that reflect your heritage in your home.
It could be art, it could be anything, and it can be really simple. It doesn't have to be anything majorly complicated. You don't have to have an installation from like a well-known artist, whatever. But it could be something really small. It could be a fabric that you like, or something that you brought from wherever you're from. You're from South Africa. There's so many different patterns and items from South Africa that I'm sure are in your home, where you feel a little bit of belonging.
And that always, sometimes you bring something small in and then that inspires something bigger.
Yes.
Well, it might be the colour,
Yes.
it might be something else. So yeah, that's a really, really great answer and a great place to start. So let's talk about your work next, your beautiful work. I love just how you represent your, or how you represent African design as a whole in this kind of quite modern and quite almost upmarket way. I find it quite unusual. And I guess that's why you found this niche in the market.
Yeah.
But for those listening, talk to us about your work, talk to us about your process and your philosophy and what you're up to at the moment. What's new? Any new collections coming up?
Very
Tell
exciting.
us.
Yeah. So what do I do? Oh gosh, it's really difficult. I'm really bad at pitching myself. So I went to like an event. I'm not going to call the name, but you have to pitch. I'm bad. I do what I love. I design what comes from my heart. I design what is within me culturally. And I think there was a market because I definitely wanted something of high quality, upmarket designs, which can go into elevated interiors, I would say, and speak to a broad range of people. The ethos is color, African, West African, specifically Yoruba heritage, and storytelling. So I think that was really important for me.
Yes.
I design, we have a whole collection, which it's all for the home. I started much broader. I started with the lifestyle brand. I had bags and makeup bags. No, we really narrowed it down to cushions, wallpapers, poofs, furnishing items, lampshades, rugs, so everything for the home to create that space that for me is so important, where you, from this turbulent world, come into and can be at ease your sanctuary. And it was important for me to create something which has a very distinct, I call it West African aesthetic or narrative, because there was nothing on, I would say, the premium market that spoke to me. So that's what I do. We've been designing since 18 years. I started off, actually in the beginning, I started off buying in the African wax fabric, the Dutch wax fabric, and used to make cushions with that.
Yes.
But very soon realized I could not distinguish myself from other designers. Everyone can buy these patterns and make cushions or whatever from it. And they're also not suitable for furnishings. The poofs you're sitting on, they're all according to like the standards we need in interior design.
Yes.
So I started designing my own designs. They're all sketched by hand by myself on a nice sketch pad. Everything is sketched with pencils, and we read it into Photoshop, adjust the colors, and work on the colors. Colors take a very long time because I'm a perfectionist. I want it to be exactly the way I want it to be, and it's really important for me for it to be right. Everything that goes on has to be ticked off. If the color is 1% off, I will not release it. So sometimes it takes a little bit longer.
I can imagine.
We have a range of home decor, home soft furnishing items in the selection, and sell these globally, all over the world. Work with interior design firms, from small residentials to big global procurement companies in hospitality, residential. We did some amazing collaborations and work with the end customer who wants to have a nice cushion to update, their sofa, something like that.
Yes. No, your work is gorgeous. And for those only listening to the podcast, do go and have a look at the YouTube, because we are sitting in Eva's studio right now with all of her amazing designs, cushions, poofs, rugs, lamps. So do go and check it out.
Please do so, you will love it. And I forgot, we've got a new collection coming up, which is really exciting, and it will launch in late March, early April. It's a very subtle but beautifully colored linen collection. So we're going into linen fabric, very elegant for drapery, with some beautiful cushions. It's like a double-sided design. It's really simple but very impactful. I'm really excited to share
it. Sounds gorgeous. I can't wait to see it.
Yes, you'll see it now. We'll give you a preview.
Oh, great. I'll get a preview. I love that. Okay, Eva. So next, I would love to talk to you about confidence, personal style, and taste. And I find, again, in my own work, working with my own clients, I find that sometimes people really struggle to define their taste or try and put together a style that they feel represents themselves. And, sometimes I feel that's kind of a deeper cultural discomfort, and perhaps they struggle a bit with expression and identity. And I sometimes encourage them to look to their heritage and just do a bit of background, on their own heritage, their own history, what there might be there that they can find and use and kind of link to their home design. And so you've told us about your core values of African culture, colour and craftsmanship, but from your experience, how can someone start kind of trusting themselves a bit more when they're decorating their home, especially if their style doesn't quite match to what they see online? We kind of covered a little bit about this in the previous question, but I wondered if you have had any further advice for someone trying to establish their own style for their homes.
Yeah, I think that goes really deep into psychology right now, because I feel coming from a fashion background, I think it starts often. I find it really interesting because sometimes, I was in an event, I was speaking at an event, there was this lady, I think she was a florist, and she had this beautiful floral patterned dress on. Yeah. I think she had like red hair. She was somewhere from outside of London. And we were discussing, she's like, oh, I've got this little powder room and I really would like to put up a floral wallpaper with a really kind of a vibrant design. Oh, but is it not too much? Is it not too... And I was just like, look at you. I mean, look at how you're dressing. But there's often I think, discrepancy between what you're wearing of who you are and what you put in your house, because it requires a lot of confidence to be bold in your design, bold in your home.
Yeah. On such a large scale, I imagine people find it scary. What you wear is quite small and you can change it with...
Yeah, what you portray in your home. But I feel, people say never judge a book by its cover. And I don't want to judge people at all, but if you see someone, the way they dress, if you really want to find out more about the person, if you come to their home and see how they live, I think that says so much about a person. It's a really difficult thing because it's a step-by-step approach, I feel. I have grown, I've always been very confident when it came to interiors and to fashion. I remember I was 13 years old and I wanted to have an old kind of antique black forest chest for my birthday. Very specific. And I remember I took my dad around. There were loads of old kind of retailers in the Black Forest where I grew up, farmers who sold their old chest of drawers and something. I think my father went mental almost, you know what I mean? I still have it in my hallway in my house. It's a very prominent position. Oh, wow. The other thing I wanted a specific light blue color for my bedroom. It didn't exist back then. Mm-hmm. So I got my dad to mix it for me. He found someone who mixed it for my bedroom. I remember exactly. So sometimes, for me, it was something from a very early age. I was very clear on my fashion style, on my design style. But I think you grow into it, and it's really getting to know yourself, being brave, thinking outside the box, and seeing what makes you happy. Not everyone has to have an eclectic home. I mean, my home is not, extremely eclectic with, it is actually quite eclectic, but it's not like, I don't have like purple walls or something. I do have purple walls. Okay, let's go back to that. It's eclectic, but it's all, I have light beige recently walls where I then use pattern and accessories to infuse color with. Yeah. So I think it's a real journey within yourself. Yes. But I think it's really important for people to grow this confidence and with interiors, the same as fashion, I always say, if you don't like the color, if you don't like the pattern, you can change it. You know what? It's not like going to be there forever. You can change it. So try, I think, step outside your comfort zone. Yes, experiment a little bit. See what you like. Yeah, and see how it makes you feel. I think it's really important because in the end of the day, home should make you feel safe, happy, at ease. And I know this feeling every day. I mean, I have different rooms, my bedroom, my kitchen, we have a big open plan space. When I said that, I'm so happy. I'm at the happiest when I'm at home because the space fascinates me. I feel so at ease. And that feeling is the best. It is the best. It is the best.
So next, Eva, I would love to talk to you about inspiration. And I remember when I was researching for our interview today, I looked at some of your other interviews you've done previously. And I remember that back in 2020, the dreaded COVID times, I won an award for an Amara Interiors Blog Award. Yeah, I remember. And when I look back at it, I remembered you were on the judging panel, and I'd completely forgotten about this. And I think now, back then, blogs were such a huge source of inspiration. They were really big back then. And I wondered now, where do you think, how has that shifted? And where do you think people are now finding inspiration for their own homes and for their own style?
Yeah. That's interesting because I remember blogs were really, really big. I still like blogs. I still read blogs. I mean, it's a little bit old school, but I think sometimes you get a little bit more information, a little bit more inspiration out of them. But obviously, social media is massive. There's obviously loads of inspiration on kind of the general social media forms. I mean, Instagram, Pinterest. A lot of people refer to Pinterest, I think. I like these, and I don't want to, don't kind of dismiss these. Travel is massive. I think I love traveling. But I would even go further. I would say meeting people. I'm inspired by meeting different people. I mean, I was in Abu Dhabi and I met two lovely ladies from South Africa there, and they were so inspiring in the way they dressed, they carried themselves, the conversations we had, and they come from a different part of the world, and I am very much inspired by things like this. So I think inspiration is everywhere, anywhere. I mean, I can walk through. I mean, I was in Germany the other week. I walked through like a German town. I saw a little pattern on a door, which I found so inspiring, and I will utilize that in one of my designs or parts of it. Where I see. So inspiration is really everywhere. It's a really generic question. You just have to open your eyes and see it and be open to it. I think that's really important. If you want to start as correct, I mean, I think social media is a great way forward. But you could walk down your high street and see. I mean, I walk down my high street and I see, or like down a road when I go on my walk, and I see a front garden with a fence, and the fence has a nice, like, kind of intricate 1930s pattern. And I take a picture of that, and that could give me an idea for a design or even for a layout in a home. There's so much. Nature has so much to give.
I know, it's so lovely just to walk, I find, same as you, and just notice things, because quite often we're all just on our phones, we're looking down and we're answering an email as we're walking, and sometimes just taking 5 minutes to stop and look up, or in London, actually physically look up towards the sky. When you're in central London, there's so many details, like on the tops of the buildings, things you don't even notice when you're just walking at street level.
So many details. So that's one thing. And for me, obviously, for my designs from Nigeria, Lagos, West Africa, when I'm in Nigeria, oh my goodness, I would say I'm like a sponge. I absorb everything. There's so much inspiration. Even some of the buildings, people consider them ugly, some of the 1950s building. I mean, this whole collection with the wallpaper behind you is all inspired by fences, the kind of fences in West Africa, because there's so much. So I think it's just keeping your mind open to what's out there and taking this in and translating that. Exactly. It could even be fashion. I mean, I less interested by fashion styles, but color combinations, textures. There's so much to see. So I think it's just being open to it and really going back to base and use your eyes, your ears, your senses, and take it all in.
Exactly. And I think, and then also just linking it back to how that makes you feel, and what you notice, how that makes you feel, and if you like it, how can you bring it or use it in a different way
Utilize
in
it,
your
exactly.
own home.
Yes.
Amazing. So your work is so globally inspired, yet it also feels incredibly personal. Do you think our modern homes are now becoming more culturally blended? And do you feel people are craving more meaning in their homes now, beyond things simply just looking nice?
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. I feel that there's a major shift. I think 5-6 years ago till now, I think culture or identity, I would call it identity, your own personality, history, story, whatever you want to call it, is much more important. Not just in your home, however you live. I think we've had all of that. First of all, we have all too much. We have access to everything. You can now buy interiors on a budget on a high street store, and you can get everything is there. So I think the only way to distinguish yourself from the rest is to infuse it with your own personality, character, cultural heritage, whatever this may be. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. So I think it's more important than ever, and I find it amazing. I find it great, because we need to move away from all of this generic design where, you get an interior designer to design something which doesn't represent you.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to work with people who can really dig into who you are, or if you can't do it yourself, who are you, what do you want, what makes you happy, makes you feel great and safe and represented and heard in your home, and create that for yourself.
Oh, lovely. Beautiful answer. Which also brings me really nicely onto the next one. So I've always wondered, with designers and makers like yourself, if someone buys one of your pieces and lives with it for a while, maybe even decades, moving house with it and so on, building memories around it, maybe even passing it on, what do you hope that one of your pieces would give someone over time?
Joy. I think I can really simply say that,
Yes.
because it could be anything. I think it's giving people joy and happiness.
Yeah.
I think I seriously come home every day into my house, which reflects me, represents me and my family, and see my pieces, and they give me joy.
Yes.
And they give me happiness. It's very simple.
They are very joyful pieces.
Yeah.
Just the designs, the colours, everything. They just kind of lift your mood a little bit when you look at them. So I think that's a perfect answer. And to end off, I would love to talk to you about balance. And I know this is something that a lot of particularly women struggle with. And
yes.
You're growing a global brand, you're doing amazing, but you're also a mother and you have a full family life beyond your business. And how have you approached that so-called balance between family life and work, building your company, and especially through different seasons in life as well? And I wondered, in a practical sense, do you have any tips, or which elements or systems do you use within your business or even within your home to help support you and help you achieve everything that you do achieve?
Okay, to be absolutely honest with you, I have no systems. I don't even know whether I have balance because it's a really, really, really tricky question. I'm very blessed that I have a very supporting family and supporting husband. Having said that, my husband and I, we brought up our children here without our parents being present in the UK. So, my parents were in Germany, his parents were in Nigeria, they were coming here regularly, but quintessentially where we were bringing them up ourselves. So I think a really good, in our case, husband and wife setup that we support each other. I mean, my husband has been there supporting me throughout the business, within the business, but also with the kids when I had to step away. Sometimes I had to say, I have to go, you have to sacrifice. I sacrificed on both ends. I'm always honest about that. I sometimes had to turn my back to the business to look after my kids, which is absolutely normal. As a mother, you do that. Your kids come first. And I had situations where I had to say, you know what, the kids will be fine. Here we are. I'm going to a trade show on the other end of the planet, and I come back in a week, and with nannies and everything, they will survive. They survived, and they're absolutely fine. So I think first of all, it's a support system, and there comes a time when you have to find balance. I'm not doing this since yesterday. In the beginning, I was working day and night and weekends. I had a full-time job, and I was doing this for I think the first 3 years alongside my full-time jobs, where I was working lunch breaks, evenings, weekends. I don't do that anymore. There's a certain time in the evening when I don't check emails, when I don't respond to emails. Over the weekend, I may do a quick check on a Saturday morning. Otherwise, I keep my focus on my family and keep myself outside of the business, mainly for my own benefit in order to find a balance. So that's really important. Holidays are still a challenge because even if I travel or wait for 2 weeks on a nice Greek island, my company still has to run. I still have to be there answering emails and everything. That's a bit tricky where I haven't found the balance yet, but I think it's really important for myself to know when to cut off, know when to shut off, know to do the things that are good for me. I like to go to the gym in the evening when I do my gym time, and afterwards the business is the business. If
those boundaries.
Having those boundaries are really important. Sacrifice on both ends. Obviously, family always comes first, but sometimes you have to prioritize the business if it's not a life or death situation.
And yourself as well.
And myself, myself as well, which is really important. For in the beginning, I was a young mother, and running the business and having the kids, I didn't always prioritize myself. Where I came to not burnout, but where I came really close to a situation where I was like, it's too much. So then you just have to learn to step away. Even right now, sometimes I just have to be really, really radical and say, I want to step away and do what's good for me, do things. I'll do a lot of things in between. They're good for me, little things, having, going to the gym, having a massage, having a nice yoga session. These are things that are important for me, going out and seeing my friends, to find the balance, travel, it's all nice to do, but I think they're important to keep the balance and stay healthy.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Eva. I think we can all, including myself, take a page out of that book, taking some time for ourselves and taking, realising when it's all a bit much.
Yes.
But I wanted to say a huge thank you today for joining me on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. And I hope we can do this again soon and chat maybe again about some of your new collections or whatever it may be. I hope we can have another conversation at some point really soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tess. Thank you for having me. And I want to show you the new collection now.
Please do. I can't wait.
The first one. Thank you for having me. It's absolutely amazing talking to you. And I can't wait to hear more about the podcast and more about what you're doing.
Amazing. Thank you so much.